If you'd asked me a couple years back what my life looked like, I'd have said I was a husband, a stepdad to two incredible kids, and finally, someone who'd found a place to belong after drifting for way too long. Name's Luis. I'm 32 now. I met Sierra when I was 28. She was a year older than me, came with two kids from a past relationship, and carried this wild, unpredictable spark that made the world feel a little less empty. She had this way of lighting up a room, even when she wasn't doing anything but sitting there quietly. I fell hard, harder than I ever had before. Her kids, Ethan, who was 6 then, and Lila, just 4, were shy around me at first. Especially Ethan. That kid had a serious look, like he was constantly measuring whether I was the real deal or just another guy passing through. Lila? She warmed up faster. She'd lean her little head on my shoulder during movie nights and giggle at the dumbest jokes I made. After a few months, they both started calling me Dad. The first time Ethan said it, I swear, I stopped breathing for a second. We were sitting on the floor building a Lego spaceship when he looked up and said, "Dad, can we make the wings bigger?" Sierra's ex, Derek, was nothing but a shadow. The kind of guy who popped in, stirred things up, then vanished without warning. He missed pickups. He broke promises. Sierra told me he was out of the picture for good. I believed her. I never pushed for more. I loved those kids like they were mine. Hell, I wanted to be their dad. A year and a half after we met, we got married. Just a small ceremony in the backyard with a few close friends. Nothing fancy, we were saving to buy a house. Sierra cried during her vows. Told me I brought calm to her life. Said I made her believe in something steady again. And I believed every single word. But the thing no one tells you about love is this. When it starts to die, it doesn't shout. It just fades. Slowly. Quietly. At first, it was the late nights at work. "You know how it is," she'd say, tossing her purse onto the kitchen table. "Quarter end. We're swamped." And I bought it. I trusted her. Then came the girls' weekends. "Just a few days in Tahoe," she said one night, brushing it off like it was nothing. "I need this. You're good with the kids, right?" Those weekends started to stretch. For days. Then 5. Texts got slower. Calls went silent. I remember staring at our message thread, counting the hours since she'd last responded, trying to convince myself it was normal. When she came home, she acted like everything was fine. "Miss me?" she'd say, grinning with open arms, and I'd play along, pretending nothing felt off. But something was off. Then came the secrecy. She changed her phone passcode, started placing her phone face down on the counter every time she set it down. One day, I asked, "Why'd you change your passcode?" She looked at me from across the room, eyes cold and sharp. "You're being insecure, Luis. Don't you trust me?" God help me, I wanted to. I needed to. The kids were still glued to me like I was their anchor. Ethan even called me Dad at school. His teacher brought it up during a conference. Said he lit up talking about our camping trip. A week or two later, he came home with a drawing from art class. A stick figure family portrait. Lila in her pink dress. Sierra with her curls. Me right there in the middle holding both kids' hands. Derek wasn't even in the picture. I had no clue what was headed my way. No idea the kind of betrayal that was quietly circling my life. And 6 months ago, it hit like a freight train. The way she told me, like we were just planning a weekend getaway, made everything feel hollow. Like the last 4 years we spent building a life together were just some trial period she could walk away from. Truth is, I don't remember much after that moment. Just the ringing in my ears, the pressure of the couch against my back, and the sound of the kids upstairs playing Minecraft. Completely unaware their world was cracking in two right beneath them. That same night, I packed a duffel with whatever clothes I could grab. Left my toothbrush behind. Left everything behind, honestly, including the heart I'd poured into that home. And then I did the only thing that felt right. I filed for divorce. For a while, she and Derek played happy family. Game nights, park outings, filtered Facebook posts with cheesy captions like, "Second chances matter," and "Family first, always." Watching it unfold from the outside felt like watching someone else live your life. like they'd stolen the script and cast me out completely. Matching pajamas at Christmas. Those polished smiles for social media. Healing together, she wrote once. Sometimes love needs a second chance. Meanwhile, I was stuck picking up the pieces, sitting in the rubble of the life they casually set on fire. And they danced through it like they hadn't been the ones to light the match. I gave it 2 weeks. No more waiting around, hoping she'd come running back with tears and guilt in her eyes. I wanted a clean break, no loose ends, no false hopes. That house? It was mine. I bought it, paid for every shingle and screw. My name was on the papers. So I laid it out straight. You and Derek need to be out by the end of the week. She looked at me like I just slapped her. But this is the kids' home, she said. No, I replied, calm but firm. They're your kids. And this is my house. I wasn't going to let it be some revolving door rental while she figured out who she really wanted. She chose. So now? It was time to pack. Of course she tried to drag it out. Cried. Claimed moving too fast would hurt the kids. But I didn't flinch. You don't get to burn my life down and then ask for shelter from the smoke, I told her. You made your bed, go share it with Derek. Just not under my roof. The following Monday I changed the locks. And then the messages started. Texts. Voicemails. At first, it was all about the kids. Luis, can you call me? It's about Ethan. Her voice in the voicemail was tight, like she was barely holding it together. He's struggling. A lot. Please. A few days later, Lila got sent home again. She's been biting, screaming, crying herself to sleep. I don't know what to do anymore. Turned out Derek wasn't exactly the reformed man he claimed to be. Part-time work, drinking again, vanishing for days without a word. And Sierra? She started unraveling. One night, around 10:30, she called. I almost let it ring out. But some part of me, some stupid part, still reacted to seeing her name. Her voice was drained, like life had finally flipped the script on her. I need help, she said quietly. Not for me, for them. I stared at the screen for a second, heart tight, breath shallow. Then I asked, ice cold, what exactly are you asking for, Sierra? She hesitated. I want you to come back. Not as my husband, I know I ruined that. But as their father. They miss you. They need you. You've always been better with them than he ever was. I let silence do the heavy lifting, long enough for her to feel the weight of what she was asking. Then I said, flat, and what do I get out of it? She stammered, caught off guard. What do you mean? I laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Just the bitter edge of someone who's done being a doormat. I mean, you want me to step back into the dad role again, yeah? For your kids. Not mine. So what's in it for me? She fumbled for words. Luis, this isn't about you. It's about the kids. No, I cut her off. It's always about the kids when it's convenient for you. When she needed a free babysitter, a bedtime storyteller, a stable paycheck, when she wanted someone solid while she chased her ex for thrills. But now that her great redemption story with Derek has gone off the rails, suddenly I'm valuable again. I scoffed. Let me make something crystal clear. I'm not your backup plan, and I damn sure ain't free labor. Her voice cracked. That's not what I meant. But it is what you're asking, I snapped. You want me to step back in, do all the emotional work, be the safe place for your kids to land while you offer me, what? A thank you card? Either pay me or give me one good reason I should start cleaning up your mess again. There was a pause. Dead quiet. Like I'd spoken in a language she'd never heard before. And in that silence, I finally realized just how long I'd been played. But the real twist? That was still coming. I kept my voice even, calm. You know, I said, I was a damn fool for marrying you and pretending we were building something real. I paused. But I've learned. That version of me? The one who played house and saved the day? He's gone. Unless you give me a damn good reason, you don't get him back. On the other end, silence. Just the sound of her shame settling in like dust after a collapse. There was this long, hollow stretch between us, like she was just now realizing how deep the damage ran. You really think I can walk back into the same house you set on fire? I asked. I heard her sniffle, probably crying. It's not like that, she said weakly. I let out a breath. No, it's exactly like that. She didn't expect that. Her voice faltered like I was supposed to offer grace on command. Sierra, I said, leaning back in my chair, sarcasm dripping from my words, should I just toss on my cape again and swoop in to save you from the mess you made? Oh, absolutely, I added with a bitter grin. Let's just forget you cheated on me. Lied to my face. Kicked me to the curb like trash you were done sorting through. Sure, I continued. I'll step right back into stepdad mode while Derek's off doing who knows what. She didn't say a word. So I kept pushing. Maybe I'll stop by tonight, I said. Bring cookies. Read The Giving Tree at bedtime. Teach Derek how to hold down a job. I chuckled, the sound dry and sharp. Hell, maybe we'll make it a group project. Maybe your ex can let your actual husband sleep with you too. Still silence. That's when I gave it to her straight. No. That's a hard no. The kind that doesn't bend, doesn't crack, doesn't fade. You made your choice. You picked him. So now? You get to live with it. Her voice came back, small, trembling. You're being cruel. I shook my head. No, Sierra. I'm finally being clear. And I ended the call. Just like that. A few days passed and then the guilt trip arrived right on schedule. So that's it, she texted. You're just walking away from them? You're no better than Derek. I fired back without hesitation. Why should I be? I asked. Seriously, what makes you think you deserve someone better? The truth had become impossible to ignore. She never truly loved me. Not really. I was the placeholder. The handyman. The dependable guy who packed lunches, signed permission slips, and fixed broken faucets while she flirted with ghosts. I was never her partner. I was just Derek's substitute. The stand-in. And now that her romantic fantasy had gone up in flames, she expected me to come back and sweep up the ashes. But I wasn't playing that part anymore. That's when things turned nasty. Her family, the same ones who once said I was the best thing that ever happened to her, turned like a switch had been flipped. The sweet check-ins dried up. Suddenly, I was getting passive-aggressive Bible verses in my inbox. Even her aunt unfriended me like we were teenagers in a fight. But the real confrontation? That came in aisle 9 of the local grocery store. I was reaching for pasta sauce when I heard it, the sound of heels, fast and deliberate. Then a sharp inhale. And a familiar voice, laced with venom, you're turning your back on family. I turned slowly. There she stood, Sierra's mom, arms folded, cardigan tight across her chest, judgment dripping off her like some expensive perfume. I didn't blink. I smiled. Cold. Precise. Yes, I said. I turned my back on your daughter. The one who cheated. Multiple times. Her jaw clenched, but I wasn't done. I turned my back on the woman who betrayed me, lied straight to my face, and used me like a placeholder until her ex got his act together. Spoiler, he didn't. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. She made a mistake, she snapped. I shook my head. No. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. What she did was a choice. A whole series of them. Behind my back. In my home. While I was tucking your grandkids into bed. People around us were starting to glance over. I didn't care. She still loves you, her mom said, voice rising with desperation. She tried. I barked a laugh. No, she loved what I did for her. Loved that I paid for school supplies. Loved the way I took care of her kids. But love, real love, doesn't sleep with someone else in your bed. You're bitter, she hissed. You're living in some fantasy. I leaned in slightly, voice like ice. I'm not the villain here, I said. Your daughter lit the match. You're just mad I had the guts to walk away while the flames were still burning. Her face turned red. You don't walk away from family. Oh, but you do, I whispered. When family becomes a leash. When staying means losing your peace just so someone else doesn't have to face consequences. When family starts to mean keeping quiet while they tear you apart, yeah, you walk. She tried to speak again, but I stopped her cold with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Tell Sierra, I said, turning away, that I said hi. Or don't. That's what I wanted to say before walking off. I wasn't her messenger anymore either. So I grabbed the jar of pasta sauce, turned my back, and left her frozen there in aisle 5, soaking in the silence she helped create. That's when the real isolation kicked in. Friends we once shared started peeling away like I was carrying something contagious. People who used to shoot me memes or invite me for a beer after work suddenly had packed schedules. I started getting those vague thinking of you texts, the kind that really meant we've chosen a side and it's not yours. Then came the labels. Heartless. Coward. Selfish. Like I'd walked out for fun. Like I hadn't stayed longer than I should have, holding up a crumbling house while everyone else had already left. To them, walking away wasn't self-preservation, it was betrayal. They saw Sierra's smiling selfies with Derek, read captions about healing and second chances, and decided I must have been the problem all along. Because it's easier to believe in a pretty lie than look under the rug and face the dirt. Then the phone calls started. From Ethan. From Lila. Just a few. Just enough to make my hands shake over the screen and my throat tighten until I couldn't breathe. But I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? Hey buddy. Sorry your mom picked the guy who forgot your birthday 3 years in a row. Guess that means I'm yesterday's news. Sweetheart, hope soccer's good. Even if I'm not in the bleachers anymore. There was no version of that call that didn't break something. So I let it ring, let their little voices land in voicemail limbo. And then I'd sit there in the dark, listening to, "Hi Dad, we miss you," and wonder how many more calls there'd be before they gave up. Because they would. Eventually, a month after I stopped answering Sierra's calls, everything just went still. No more guilt-drenched updates. No more begging. No more "Lila won't stop crying" or "Ethan quit soccer." Just silence. It should have brought peace. But instead, it echoed. My house turned into a museum of a life I didn't live anymore. Cartoon coffee mugs with chips in the handles, ones they picked out. A crumpled drawing with the three of us smiling under a sun with too many rays. A tiny pink sock I couldn't bring myself to toss. They were everywhere. Little ghosts made of cotton and crayon. Each night, I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to wonder if Lila still cuddled that stuffed penguin I won her at the fair. If Ethan still talked about the day I taught him to ride his bike. The day he fell, cried, and I kissed his knee like it could fix everything. I missed them so fiercely it felt like an exposed bone. Raw, sharp, impossible to ignore. But I didn't go back. Because going back would have taught them the worst kind of love. The kind that stays silent through pain. The kind that teaches you to stay, no matter how badly someone treats you, just to keep a picture-perfect family photo stuck to the fridge. I couldn't do that. Not to Ethan. Not to Lila. Not to me. Last I heard, Sierra and Derek were taking a break, which is her polite way of saying he relapsed again and left her scrambling for air. He's in rehab. She's bouncing between jobs, clinging to a version of life patched together with duct tape and denial. The kids? They're holding on. Kids always do until they don't. But on those nights when the city's asleep and the only thing I hear is my own damn heartbeat, I wonder, do they remember? The guy who did the silly voices at bedtime, who stood in the rain, soaked to the bone, screaming, "Go, Ethan!" louder than anyone else. The fool who spent 3 whole weekends building a wobbly treehouse just because Lila wanted a castle in the sky. I wonder if they know I didn't leave because I stopped loving them. I left because I started loving myself. Because sometimes love isn't about holding on through anything. It's about knowing when to let go, even when it rips you apart. And I let go not because they didn't matter, but because someone had to show them. Real love doesn't mean losing yourself to keep someone else whole. Then came the real gut punch. A knock on the door one Thursday. I opened it expecting a package or some neighbor complaint. Instead, court papers. At first, I thought they had the wrong guy. Maybe someone else's mess had landed on my doorstep. But no. Right there in bold print. Petition for child support. Sierra had filed. For Ethan. For Lila. Kids that weren't mine. Not by blood. Not by any legal adoption. But apparently none of that mattered now. Her argument? That I'd acted as a de facto parent. That by loving them like my own, I had taken on the responsibility. She listed everything. Every bedtime routine, every appointment I scheduled, every dollar spent on soccer cleats and stuffed animals, even that crooked little treehouse. She turned every hug, every scraped knee, every memory, into evidence. Everything I had done, every bedtime story, every scraped knee I patched, was now being twisted into legal ammunition. In our state, that kind of thing actually holds weight. Didn't matter that I never officially adopted them. Didn't matter that their biological father was still alive, still technically in the picture, even if that picture looked like a bearded ghost with a bottle in one hand and a rehab punch card in the other. If the judge sided with her, I could end up paying child support for years. For 2 kids she ripped away from me so she could play pretend with a man who saw fatherhood as a part-time gig. And when I say I felt like I was losing my mind, I mean it. There were days I'd sit in my car after work, keys in the ignition, just shaking, wondering, how the hell did my life end up here? Eventually, I hired a lawyer. Guy's name was Mark Feldman. Yeah, I know, unfortunate coincidence. It cost me nearly $5,000 just to retain him. Money I didn't have. That was my down payment fund. My fresh start. Gone. Then I started missing work. First, it was just a couple meetings. Then it was prep sessions. Court appearances. My boss took notice. My hours got cut. The talk about a promotion vanished into thin air. Everything I'd built back up after Sierra blew it all apart started crumbling again. And the few friends I still had, they were split down the middle. One night over drinks, my buddy Ryan leaned in and said, "Look, man, you raised them. They love you. Just do the right thing." I snapped. "Oh, so now love comes with a payment plan and a front row seat to watch your wife sleep with her ex?" He didn't have a reply. Another friend, Tyler, texted me late one night, "Fight it. Not your job. You're being used." But even with support, sleep barely came. Because my head and my heart, at war. I did love those kids. I did show up. But I never signed up for this. And now the same woman who wrecked me was dragging me back into the fire. The trial was brutal. Sierra's lawyer showed up polished and smug, like he'd been practicing this speech for weeks. Crisp suit, calibrated voice. He painted me as some cold-hearted man who bailed on two vulnerable children during a pivotal time in their lives. Then they brought out the photos. Me smiling at soccer games, holding birthday cakes, ripping wrapping paper on Christmas morning. Each picture twisted into a weapon. Me, the dad who wasn't legally a dad, being presented like I was the villain for walking away. Then came the videos. Ethan, looking straight at the camera, voice low and unsure, clearly reading something he'd been told to say. "I love you, Barrett." There was a moment, just a flicker, where he called me Dad. And I swear, his voice cracked, like he didn't understand why this was all falling apart. And then came Lila's letter. I couldn't read it without my hands trembling. Her handwriting was crooked, uncertain. Her words were raw. "I miss my daddy, Barrett, and I wish he would come home." I could feel Sierra's hand all over it. The coaching, the pushing, the guilt. But even knowing that, her words hit me like a punch to the ribs. I sat there blinking back tears, my chest tight, feeling like I was going to break right there in front of everyone. I thought I'd moved on. I wanted to believe I had. But hearing Lila, it was like she was still mine. Still that little girl who once called me her hero. And then I looked over at Sierra, stone-faced, not a single crack in her expression. She sat there like she wasn't the one who'd blown this whole thing apart. Like she was just as much a victim as anyone else. That's when Mark stood up. "Your Honor, may I cross-examine the petitioner?" The judge gave the nod. My pulse kicked into high gear. This was it. We were finally digging beneath the surface. Mark started simple. "Did Barrett ever legally adopt the children?" Sierra didn't even blink. "No." And that word echoed. No legal ties, no documents, just a man who stepped in where someone else stepped out. But the moment she said it, I could see something in her shift, like she knew where this was headed. Mark leaned into the next question. "Why did you divorce Barrett?" She hesitated, just for a second. Then quietly, "I wanted the kids to have a chance with their real father." And right there, that changed everything. She said the quiet part out loud. She hadn't done this for them. She did it for herself. Mark pounced. "If that were true," he said, voice slicing through the courtroom, "there were better ways. Derek could have had visitation. You could have worked out shared custody. You could have asked him to pay his child support. But that didn't happen, did it?" He turned to the judge. "Instead, she moved Derek into my client's home immediately after kicking him out. And she resumed a physical relationship with the man she claimed was unfit." The courtroom froze. I could feel the heat in my face. Because that was it. That was the truth. And for the first time, she knew she'd been caught. Mark didn't hold back. He looked straight at the judge and said, "If these kids missed their biological father so much, why is it suddenly my client they're calling and crying for now?" Then he answered his own question. "Because this isn't about the kids. It's about Sierra wanting Derek back in her life. And now that he's in rehab again and my client looks stable, she wants that safety net back too." "You don't want him," Mark said, voice sharp. "You want the stability he gave you." I sat there, clenching my jaw, trying not to lose it as Mark pulled out the proof. Her Facebook posts, all of them, photos of her and Derek with the kids. captions dripping with performative perfection. The ones she'd hidden from me while we were still married. There they were, public now, displayed across the courtroom screen like digital betrayal. Every staged smile, every matching pajama post, every filtered lie. Mark laid it out for everyone to see. He didn't just argue my side. He exposed her. And in that moment, everyone in that room saw her for what she really was. Not a mother fighting for her kids, but a woman trying to cover her own mistakes with someone else's stability. In the end, the judge gave a mixed ruling. I wasn't fully off the hook, but I wasn't buried either. The fact that I never legally adopted Ethan and Lila worked in my favor. And since Derek was still their legal father, no matter how much of a disaster he was, I couldn't be forced to pay child support. But of course, there was a catch. The judge decided that because I'd evicted them from the house, I had to cover relocation expenses. $500. Not a huge amount, but not nothing either. It wasn't just about the money. It was the message. You didn't have to raise them, the ruling seemed to say. But because you walked away even for the right reasons, now you owe us. It was absurd. She destroyed everything, and I had to pay the cleanup fee. I could still hear the judge's words ringing in my head. You weren't obligated to give them a home, but you kicked them out. So now you're responsible for the impact of that. $500. That was just the number on the check. The real cost? That was something else entirely. It was the grief of walking away. The ache of letting go of something I once thought was my forever. I stared down at that check, feeling the weight of it like a stone in my palm. It wasn't money I was handing over, it was closure. A receipt for a chapter one never wanted to write. And the worst part? No amount of cash was going to fix the kind of damage this left behind. Derek? Yeah, he relapsed. Again. Ended up fleeing the rehab center altogether. I should have seen it coming. Maybe deep down I was still foolish enough to think he'd finally turn a corner. But Sierra? She's already scanning for a new father figure. In a town this small, that's no easy trick, but she's good at the game. Still attractive, still knows how to make a man feel needed. I wouldn't be shocked if she snagged another guy who thinks he's saving her. That was me once. A fixer. A fool. I still see Ethan and Lila sometimes, if only in my mind. Their little faces show up when I least expect it. A quiet laugh in an empty room. A memory that catches me like a splinter in the chest. Time's passed. But pain like that doesn't vanish, it just burrows in and scars. I don't know why it still stings like this. Maybe because it all could have gone differently. But if there's one truth I've carved out from the wreckage of it all, it's this. You can give someone everything. Your heart. Your trust. A home. A future. You can carry them through their darkest hours and build them back up from nothing. But if they don't love you back with the same depth, the same honesty, none of it matters. You're always one bad day away from becoming a ghost. Or worse, a threat. And sometimes, the very people you would have walked through fire for. They'll be the ones standing over your ashes asking if you've got anything left to give.